Welcome to the American Made and Paid Show, the home of free speech and independent thought.
The big story is freedom of speech is really in trouble. The far left knows that at any time they can call for a sponsor boycott of anyone they despise.
It is right here, right now, where you'll get your weekly dose of unfiltered truth.
It's non-negotiable. Pre-existing conditions will be protected. This president has said this as a candidate.
Insight.
Very few people I know could have handled it. We can never, ever let this happen to another president again.
And information that challenges the American way of life.
Welcome, everybody, to the American Made and Paid Show. Hope you guys had a fantastic Memorial Day weekend. Obviously, I'll be putting up 2 split episodes because of the day off. Things happen. You know, we try to do this consistently 5 days a week, but things happen. And I just want to keep you guys updated. I'll probably make a YouTube video about this, but I'm in the process of making some money here. So I have a role that I do where I take calls, and I got to make money because if any of you have been sleeping under a rock, you're all in for a rude awakening when you find out that it turns out on the internet, for us content creators doing podcasts or videos, they've basically choked my channel, revenues down and all that. I can't really do anything about it. So it's not that I've put everything on a halt for those of you who are wondering why I don't upload as frequently anymore. It's just that my attention is going to be focused on this podcast and, you know, what I'm doing outside of that, because we all know what happened to Laura Loomer. You know, when they pulled the plug on her, she went on a freak out. And that's just the fact, because they depend on social media for their revenue. But I'm like, you know, you got to diversify. You got to do other things. You got to learn to code, learn to sell, learn to hustle. I mean, there's a lot of ways to make money rather than just whining about it on the internet. So I don't want to be one of those people who's blaming YouTube for being censored. Why? What I did was I talked about Farrakhan, talked about Christianity. So that's typically what's going to happen. My buddy Jerry Liu, actually, I don't know if I told you this, Professor Drake, he tried to start a faith-based YouTube channel. He has like 3 YouTube channels. He tried to start a faith one. YouTube actually prevented him from starting it.
Wow.
You see what I mean? So this is out of control. Progressivism has taken hold, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the right to speak. You know, I'm really inspired by these independent Baptist churches, by people who really actually go out into the community. You know, they do like soul winning and stuff like that. And also one thing that I will say in a YouTube video is I'm also working on my faith. So I'm, you know, obviously reevaluating here, not making as many videos. But speaking of that, let's jump into today's topic and talk a little bit about more development with these abortion laws, right? Which is really a morality issue at the end of the day, happening in a lot of these states. And, you know, I think the latest state is Mississippi or Indiana? What's your thoughts on it?
Oh, shoot. Well, the court was able to block or stop the Mississippi, one of those laws, right? One of the
Supreme Court stopped this?
Well, no, one of the circuit courts.
Okay.
And that's pretty important. And the reason why this is really important to get into is because the defendants, you know, the people who wrote the law, were not able to define life.
Oh, man, are you serious?
No, but this is the thing, because the whole point that the judge made was, well, you know, it's if we're basing things on viable life, when is a life viable? And so they were saying, like, well, it's during the heartbeat. And then they were saying, yeah, but what if you can't detect the heartbeat or something? Is the life viable? And da-da-da-da-da. And so anyway, so long, like, you know, off the shit, let me, because I hate to be wrong about this, but, well, the listeners can look up the details, but basically there was an argument about, you know, about when did life start.
Right.
And I'm thinking, are these guys insane? They couldn't find any normal biologist who could explain to somebody when life starts.
Yeah.
This is just a matter of simple science. This isn't anything complicated.
I think to take it back to what you said last week about how we have a soul, right, as humans, and it's electrical impulses in the brain. This happens in every nucleus of every cell. Why? Because cells divide, just like blood, mitosis, right? How do they do that? Well, there's a command sequence in the nucleus of every cell that says to do so, to reproduce, to create life. So, I mean, I think we can go off of that. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. But see, but here's the thing. Yeah, you can do that, and you can get any scientist to agree with that.
Right.
Life. When does life begin for a tree? That's why they sell seeds. You know, is this life? Do they respect life? What about a spider egg? Are they going to kill spider eggs? Are they going to, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of people in PETA or all of these, you know, environmental groups or whatever.
One of the things we got to get into is veganism. We're talking about radical veganism, though.
Yeah. No, but I'm telling you now, we can get into anything. And because there is a lot that these people just don't get.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't get it. They just don't get it. And yeah. It's when you think about it, it's just crazy. But long story short, that was their mistake. Their mistake was they couldn't define when life started. And it's quite simple. It's at the point of conception, you know, like you explained the zygote and blah, 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 blah. And, and when the egg and sperm becomes a zygote or whatever, and it attaches, that's when it becomes, you know, life. And it was amazing how they couldn't make those arguments. And I'm thinking all these lawmakers don't know any scientists, you know, or any biologists. It's amazing. So like, and that's the thing, you know, what makes me upset, or not even upset, because I have no dog in this fight anyway, but what makes me really upset about conservatives or Republicans or whatever, they're all gutless. Like, they all talk a big game, but this loss totally shows me and people like myself that these guys are not your representatives. They're not going to fight for what you believe in.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, like, I honestly don't care about abortion. I know it's killing, but, you know, am I for it? Am I against it? No to both. I'm not for killing or against it. That's nothing I wouldn't do, but I'm not going to, you know, force my will on anybody because I really just don't care. But that said, for all those people pretending to care, like these lawmakers who lost his case, come on. I'm not trying to disparage anybody who's teaching high school science, but any high school science teacher could have won this. It's that obvious. It is that obvious that's life. You know, you can talk about the nervous system, as primitive as that may be, that's still life. Or is a Venus flytrap protected? Well, it seems like a lot of plants are protected under California law. I don't know about Mississippi law, but the same rationale that protects endangered species should protect all life, whether it's plant or, you know, animal, bird, fish, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Those same principles of science that protects that life should, I mean, because think about it. We have to protect habitat.
Right.
So these little crabfish could reproduce.
Yeah.
Right?
I was just having a conversation about this, about how it's all inherently tight. You know, a beaver is like a keystone species. You kill a beaver in its ecosystem and the whole thing falls apart. Isn't that funny?
No, but that's what's crazy. And you're going to tell me none of these lawmakers could have that type of, you know, not even an epiphany. This is common sense. Everybody who, Jesus, I've seen kids in the 3rd grade understand habitat. So it makes no sense that you're going to destroy the habitat inside the vagina and go ahead and go suck that thing right out. It makes no sense. How did these guys not know this?
Well, I think it's because they're defending their own interests, right? That's the same answer.
I'm talking about the lawmakers who passed this law in Mississippi. How did they not know? How did they lose? Seriously, no, because this is what kills me. If New York can literally kill a kid, 9 months old, and can probably understand what you're saying, how in the hell do you lose when a state like New York could have that law? A state like Virginia can kill a baby, like not even like a tadpole, a real human baby that can talk, cry out loud. You know what I mean? Like understand scent and who knows if they really understand music or not. But my point is, it's a real human being at 9 months, and you can kill that baby. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And
they can win that, but somebody can't win an argument on basic third grade science.
Well, this this ties in, right? I think that's a good question to pose to our listeners. I mean, we can keep on discussing this, but I want to expand on that a little bit, because this was very critical, especially now that this is recent news where this is in Missouri now, right? What are your thoughts on the ACLU actually getting involved with this? And this goes back to language, because now the people who are the spokespeople for these legislative policies are saying that, well, there's a constitutional right to an abortion, which we've established as being BS. But the fact that now they actually want to put abortion laws on ballots and get voters to vote on them.
Yeah.
As opposed to the courts just deciding,
See, but that's why it's such BS.
Yeah.
This whole thing, that's why it pisses me off. I'm thinking, oh my God, how is this even humanly possible? I don't know. Other than, like I said, in previous episodes, dude, it's time for a new leadership in the conservative movement, because, dude, I'm conservative.
It has to be biblical law, though. If you think
about it. No. See, it doesn't have to, because I think that's the big mistake. Because everybody's trying to follow biblical law, but okay, so
I mean, we fell a long way from the country you used to be.
Well, see, but here's the thing, forgive my ignorance and the lack of my Bible knowledge, but here's I know this for a fact, and we spoke about this before, at how there's a correlation, obviously according to the Bible, blacks were the first ones here on the planet. They were probably the original Jews, blah, 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 and da-da-da-da-da, because of Ethiopia. So that said, they were the first ones to go against God. The word of Moses, they were the first ones. And obviously, they fell, they were enslaved. And throughout the history of, especially like the ancestry of African Americans, every time they embraced the word of God, even before Jesus, whenever they turn away from God, they've been punished. Wandering here, wandering there, killing each other. It's all madness. So the biblical law just didn't work.
Right.
And believe it or not, between 1865 and 1912, when Christianity had like a stronghold in the black community, that's when they were the most successful in the history of any recorded time. Blacks have never been more successful when they embraced
Christianity,
the word of Jesus.
Yeah,
like Jesus' philosophy. So through the philosophy of Jesus, I am quite positive that is the way to go. Whether it's economics, whether it's, you know what I mean? Like anything you can think of, they had social justice. They really did.
Yeah, but real social justice as opposed to what exists now.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, they didn't need the government or the Old Testament ways of like the 10 Commandments to understand that a woman can drive a car, a woman can vote, a woman could be a multi-millionaire.
Right.
Seriously, that all happened when they embraced Christianity.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. But guess what? Guess who's out the bottom? The Chinese, because they didn't believe in God. Well, I mean, they might have, but they didn't know Jesus. They knew this whole weird stuff that they used to believe in. And they were at the bottom. And now what, 2019, I said this before, it's the blacks have turned away from God. And somehow, some way, the Chinese, the Asian people embrace, like the Koreans. I mean, if you look around the Bay Area, all the churches, like the Jesus type of churches, are all Asian, whether it's in Korean, whether it's in Chinese. It's crazy. So anyway, but they're at the top. They make the most money. They're the best educated, blah, 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 blah. And why is that? It can't be a coincidence. It has to be like there's a real formula to this.
Sure.
And that's what I'm saying. So it can't be biblical law. It has to be based on the philosophy of Jesus. Like, we have to really understand what he said. Seriously, because a lot of people, they I think that was the mistake. They try to make it into some kind of law when they just didn't understand.
Well, here's the thing, and I want to reiterate some stuff that we talked about earlier. I think that when we think about the Bible, and I know you've made claims that a lot of people don't understand the Bible or anything, I will say this. A lot of people really do understand the Bible, understand it full and full. Unfortunately, the people that truly understand the Bible, right, are not people who are in power. They're not people who are in politics.
Yeah, but they got to be.
Yeah, I know, no, and that's the goal. We've talked about that consistently, but that's the thing. It's like I have yet to see an independent, like Baptist, King James fundamental guy make it. Because here's the thing: if you are really a Bible believing, understanding Christian, right, and we're talking about not the fake ones here, not the ones that are responsible for allowing for a lot of, unconstitutional things to pass, unchristian-like things to happen. Think about the stances that you have to take, because consider this for a second. If you really were Bible believing, every instance of it, right, you would be against homosexuality. You would actually come out and say the Bible explicitly preaches against sodomy. You would have to say things like that. And guess what? That's why people like that don't ever get elected, for being right, for stating a fact. If you're going to state biblical truths, you can't just shy away from that question, because guess what's going to happen when you take that stage right at the podium? You're going to get somebody during a town hall going, "Hey, Representative so-and-so, what are your thoughts on gay marriage? I believe marriage is between a man and a woman." And that's all it would take. You wouldn't even have to say the word sodomite like Michael Savage did. By the way, Michael Savage, that's how he got kicked off of MSNBC, just for saying that word. Some guy called in, was like, he put on his sunglasses, and it was so funny. Like, I got to say, like, it's just hilarious the way you handle it. Because the guy called in, he's like, "Oh yeah, I went to a bathroom and fiddled around." He's like, "You're not one of those sodomites, are you? You're not." It's like, get off the and he got fired over that. So if Michael Savage, just as an example, loses a contract, gets kicked off of MSNBC, you really think some kind of fundamentalist Christian who believes that marriage is between a man and a woman, marriage, right? Explicitly what that word means, you think he's going to get very far in the polls? No, that's not how it works. Well, and that's your answer.
Why? Because they do it in the way that you described. Like, that's not how you do it. Like,
I know that's where if I ever take a position of leadership or politics, you got to be able to.
No, because here's the thing. Because the Bible doesn't just preach about, being gay is bad. It teaches almost everything in the carnal mind is bad. And that's why we have to understand, like, the science of it. So instead of saying it's bad, I think, like, I hate to think like this, but, like, you got to think, what would Jesus do? It's like, seriously, that should be like a new game. What would Jesus
What are you talking? That's what Christians say all the time. What would Jesus do?
No, but like, seriously, but you have to really get into it. What would Jesus do? So if Jesus saw some fag and he's, butt sex. No, but it's the truth, right? So he walks in like there's this place on Nob Hill. I forgot. It's some place, right?
It's rather ironic because it's called Nob Hill, and Nob is the British word.
Slob the knob. But anyway,
that's funny.
Jesus wouldn't shy away from a place like that. So if he goes in and he's just like wondering, there's a sick guy, I'm going to go help him. So what would he tell the guy? Honestly, what would he say? He'd probably say something like, "Hey, look, brother, you know what?
This ain't right."
No. He wouldn't even say this ain't right. He's like, "Look, your health is severely compromised when you, and he'll break it down. It's like, look, syphilis comes from this kind of bacteria that lives in your intestine, and when it gets out of your intestine, it's going to eat away at your brain, and it could stop you from doing this and doing that. So if you really care about this person that you love and all this other stuff.
See, okay, so here's the counter argument, right? Because this is not even about morality here. This is if you were talking to an everyday person. We don't talk about that aspect, because what the next course of action for people in that situation would be is to come up with preventative care. I want to still indulge in carnal behavior as long as I'm safe. That's how contraceptives came into play, man. That's why it came in was, okay, you know what? Yeah, we probably shouldn't be having sex and being promiscuous, a lot of people, because it leads to diseases, it leads to poor relationships or whatever. But guess what? Here's a pack of condoms. Now you can do whatever you want. Like that's why
Jesus wouldn't be doing that.
But that's what I'm saying, because that's what the response would be is, I did an enema, I wear a condom, and now I'm all good.
But that's the whole point. Then he goes, and he'll break it down scientifically. It ain't clean. There is no such thing as safe sex.
Yeah, it's just
and the whole
safer sex is all.
No, but even that's not true.
I'm aware. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. That's how people would justify it. You see, it's not about the question of indulging in carnal behavior, lustful passions of the flesh here. It's about, can I still do it and not experience death and not die from it?
Well, then he could break it down and say things like, well, guess what? I offer eternal life, or whatever it is that he, whatever.
And that's what he does. Yeah, that's what it's about.
See, but that's the point. See, people don't know how to speak to other people. And I think that's what made Jesus' philosophy good, because,
he loved and he came down to earth as a man.
Well, no, but forget all that. Because you got to think, why did the Jews not accept him versus, and like, seriously, why did the Muslims and the Jews accept their previous, Old Testament ways, like what you said, biblical law? So how come the Jews stick with biblical law? How come the Muslims stick with biblical law? How come, why did the Asian people just flock to Christ? Because the thing is like this. Buddha is very similar to Jesus Christ, but there's a lot of differences. But like, because like Buddha, he's like this guy, blah, 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 blah. But see, Buddha was just a lazy dude. Not the Indian dude, the original Buddha.
Yeah, not the fat happy Buddha, because that's a sign of wealth. See, that's also another thing that's screwed up, because they're not.
But that's all weird bullshit, superstition. That's why I can't get into Buddhism, because there is no science behind it. It's just all pure superstition, like voodoo. If you know anything about voodoo,
and I think Buddhist philosophy to some degree, right, may be helpful in your life. But I think as a lifestyle, it's just not for me. And I'm also speaking ignorantly here. So if there's any practicing Buddhists, yeah, you can call me out on it. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but I can see where, like, not being so materialistic has some parallels with Christianity. I can see where being present in the moment, right, has its benefits of being intentional when it comes to your decision making. I don't think that that's inherently wrong or right. And I think that's the idea, because it isn't really a God philosophy. It's just, it's not a religion. It's more of a philosophy, the way I see it, at least, the way I interpret it. Because that's what it is, right? It's a way of life. It's not like are you really attaining higher consciousness, or are you really just attaining nirvana, which is presence? Like, at least those are my thoughts when it comes to
but that's the thing. So it's like, but that's why I think, because of the philosophies being so similar, as far as, because the one thing I do know about Jesus is he's anti-war. He's not going to stone people. You know what I mean?
And even when the Jews,
just like Buddhists.
Well, what happened with the Jews was they brought him a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery, and they said, "Hey, the law states that we stone this person to death." And he basically rebuked them and was just like, okay, if you don't have sin, then why don't you throw the first stone? And then
see, and that's the thing, like, but that's, because
it's turning the other cheek to some degree.
well, not just no, but Jesus was heavy into rehabilitation. That's the whole thing. And I think the reason why he was like that was because not that he understood. Jesus actually understands everything this planet has to offer every single person. And if they actually understood what was underneath their feet, they wouldn't be playing on their assholes. They wouldn't.
Yeah.
There would be no need to dig in your butt if you knew how to dig on the ground and grow some food, or learn how to turn that material on your feet to some type of superconductor and generate your own energy, generate anything you could possibly think of.
Yeah.
All modern tech comes literally from the chemicals on this planet. There is, Jesus, like it's the number's like quadrillion. It's like, 15 times more bigger than trillions. You know what I mean? Like, that's how many atoms there are on this planet. Tons. It's a huge ass number. So when you understand what this earth is made out of, and what magnetism, gravity, what all of these things can do for you, if you engage your mind the way you're supposed to, well, of course you could be rehabilitated, because you open yourself up to things that you just never knew existed. And I think that's what Jesus was trying to tell everybody. Hey, look, do this, do that. You're worried about this sin, that sin. Just worry about yourself. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to control everybody, worry about yourself. He was the biggest what's that word that they use in the Constitution? Centralized government or something like that.
Yeah.
That's why Jesus was not a socialist, because he was against centralized governments, because centralized governments are big on punishing people.
Right. And he's also big on
as a judge.
Well, right. Well, the big thing here is everything is civil. You see what I mean? As opposed to central government. That's why a lot of libertarian ideas, like Ayn Rand, which we talk about, she took it from the Bible. You took it from the four Gospels. That's why none of it is original. That's because I keep
telling everybody, dude, she's a ripoff. All she did was steal the philosophy. That's why I liked her so much, because I didn't know anything about the Bible. But dude, she ripped all her philosophy off from the Bible. Dude, it's just all Jesus Christ stuff. That's all she did. But then instead of saying she's now Jesus, she's now a God, like a lot of smart people, they do that.
And that's the funny thing, right? Is if people are like, oh, I fail to see that. It's like, let's think about this for a second. We want to define libertarianism as in freedom, right? Jesus comes to set you free. Libertarians, it's defined, right? What are they looking for? They're looking for the most amount of political freedom, property freedom, autonomy, really, really strong, and being able to choose your own, decisions, decide your own destiny, freedom of choice, voluntary association, and individual judgment, right? And that is what Jesus says. It's like, you can choose to follow me and you can choose not to. So this is also different from that Calvinist belief of, everybody who believes will believe, because that's not the case. You have free will. In fact, his philosophy maximizes the amount of free will you can have, because he even says, I will make you, and you're going to love this, by the way. There's a quote in there. I wish I knew the verse better, but he's like, do this, and I will not just make you abundant, but you'll be fishers of men as well. And there's a reason behind that, and I'm not doing it justice, so forgive me for those listeners who aren't. But I'm serious. Like, the thing is, people who are left socialist types, right, are looking to abolish that. They're looking to abolish any kind of individual and private ownership when it comes to capital or the means of production. And there's absolutely really no mention of that. I can see where there's talks in the Bible where people misinterpret money being the root of all evil, but it's not. The love of money is the root of all evil. There's a difference there. But people look at that and they're just like, because think about it, right? If you had a love of money, remember when we first started talking, this was even before the Bible talk, and you said, yes, you need to know how to make money. You need to know how to learn to be wealthy. You can't have these debts. But remember when we were talking about real street conservatism and sovereignty, you were saying something like, but you can't be attached to money because you can be bought. That's the same philosophy. So it's not about money being the root of all evil. It's the love of money. you serve money as opposed to you making money work for you. So it's all in there. Like everything is in there. And that's the problem, is people need to understand that if they're all about this Pete Buttigieg, about more left-wing politics with socialist government and everything, equality. You want to know the funny thing about Jesus? He never talked about equality. He just talked about individualism, everyone having the freedom of choice, right? You know, black and yellow, you know, what is it? What's that quote that I always hear around? Like, red and yellow, black and white, all are the same in God's sight. It's like, you're not equal, but...
I know that song. Black and white, I know that song.
Yeah. Well, but see, that's the thing. So we need to... One thing I want to emphasize for a lot of our listeners is that a lot of these left-wing schools of thought are economic and political systems that have been developed in the last couple of centuries. I would say more prominently in just the 20th century with Karl Marx and, you know, all these folks that have limited our schools of thought. But it goes back to what we've always talked about with progressivism, which is taking God out of the equation. And, you know, here's the thing. I got to say this, but if you know anything about Mormonism, ooh, man, I mean, that... I have friends that are Latter-day. I have friends that are Latter-day Saints, but it's a flawed ideology. I mean, through and through. It's just like, if you know the history of Joseph Smith. I mean, did you know that in Mormonism, like, the blacker your skin, that means you have more sin? Like, that's why. It's like, you ever met a black Mormon? It's like, they're not very common. You know, I don't want to harp on Mormonism, but that's the thing. Like, when we think of folks like Pete Buttigieg, guys, like, I mean, really listen to what he's saying, because a lot of people, what they've done is they've bastardized Christianity. And this goes back to why I'm kind of working on my faith and everything, because of the idea that Christians, you know, allowed for a lot of these things to happen. A lot of the problems that we have, America in its current state, falling into its current state, is because of milquetoast or lukewarm Christianity. I mean, and I was the same way as well. It's like, I can't condone certain things, right? Even though they've become widely accepted. A lot of 20th century progressivism is just that. Oh, you be accepting of it because of the current times we're in. In fact, a lot of contemporary Jews, if you actually go and talk to Reformed or Orthodox Jews, they believe in progressivism. It's not about them being conservative, because conservatism is not the same in this regard, even though they're rabbis. They believe in, like, okay, like I saw an interview of a I haven't talked personally to a Jewish rabbi, but they don't actually even believe in adult circumcision. It's like, if somebody, like, if you want to actually be conservative, as in conserving the old biblical laws of the Torah, you would go and circumcise adults. You know, as unpleasant as that sounds, right?
I know.
I'm serious.
Shit,
but here's the thing. A lot of them don't believe that anymore, and they believe in, like, well, if you just prick it or whatever, that counts, you know. But see, that's the thing. If you wanted to follow real Orthodox Judaism to the letter, think about what you'd be doing. And you didn't believe in Christ as being, you know, the replacement of all that. Like Christians believe that because of Christ, we don't have to seek forgiveness through animal sacrifices, show that you're a Jew through circumcision or anything like that. Paul talks about it in Romans. That's why I want you to read the whole book of Romans, because it's the most compelling argument for ways to live, right? Yeah. You're not circumcised on the outside, you're circumcised in your spirit, circumcision of the heart, right? And that's what it's all about. So you don't have to, like we talked about this before, the original reason for circumcision was to be kept holy, to be separate from other people, so you could identify it. Like that really is the original reason, right? The indication that you are one of God's people. You know, you are the recipient of God's covenant, God's promise, right? And that's the thing, is like, it's not consistent. A lot of these Reformed and Orthodox rabbis, they don't even believe in a lot of that stuff. It's like, animal sacrifices, are you going to do that? No. You don't even believe in circumcision anymore? No. And so it's like, what is it that you believe? I mean, what do you practice? And I'm not saying this to harp on anybody specifically, but that is the rhetorical question when we think about belief systems. And when we lend our support to people who are pro-war and pro-socialist government, and even if they say they're a Christian or they're a Jew, forget about that for a second and look at what they actually believe in. But you also have to know what it's about. So
Well, see, and it goes back to what I said earlier. I just believe all those religions are cults, man. I just do. It's like, that sounds like a cult to me. It doesn't sound like they really are down.
Church of Jim Jones. That's how you get a Jim Jones. It's because
No, but it's the truth. You have to be willing to help people.
Yeah.
It's the truth, and that's I believe is unique to true Christian culture. It's and that's, you know, not to sound like a weirdo, but it's the only way to honestly get economic, as they say, equality for everybody.
Right.
And the thing is, and economic equality doesn't mean, and this goes back to the streets, because look, just equal economic equality just means nobody's broke. Obviously, some guys are going to be richer than others, but as long as you don't take away that person's right to make money and use it as they see fit, then you're going to be fine on the streets. And I believe that's the same way with Christianity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody is going to dictate to you how much this, how much that. And the thing is, you help people based on what you see. So if you see something, you're more likely to help that guy out just because you understand what it's like to be at the bottom. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand about Christianity, I believe. Because, you know, I was
you got to be careful too, because all this talks of prosperity and all that is not necessarily, like, here's the thing. Before I'll let you finish, right? It's very easy to think, well, aren't Christians, like, because people have a skewed view of Christianity. They have the poor Baptist radical type Christianity, and then you have these feel-good Christians with prosperity and all that. And the truth is, it's not relevant to what Jesus talks about. Because here's the thing. If you practice those principles that's in Romans, right, what Paul was writing to all these churches and helping your neighbors and everything, you'll have more abundance than you could imagine. And it even says that word for word in the Bible. It's like, if you seek God's kingdom first, all of these things you look for will be added onto you. He didn't say some, he said all. But the problem is people associate, it goes back to language at the end of the day. That's why it's so important to have the right translation, all that kind of stuff, where it's you think, oh, well, because that's the people, folks like Jesse Duplantis, who we talked about earlier, Kenneth Copeland, Joel Osteen, these like televangelists, talk about how, oh, well, I have money because of God's favor, and, you know, I'm just going to con a bunch of people in my congregation and fleece them,
I like that guy.
Fleece them for money, right? And that's not true either, because are you really helping anybody? Kenneth Copeland doesn't even know people in his congregation. You know, he flies around in private jets. And I'm not harping him for being rich, but his means of getting there was different from what you just said, which is not helping people. Not helping people.
Yeah. Well, see, but that's my point. See, like, and we'll bring this back to the original story. Like, what would Jesus do if he was at that, you know, gay strip joint, you know, whatever, or just walking around anywhere in San Francisco? He wouldn't be acting the same way that a lot of these Christian leaders or Republican leaders pretend to think or be outraged. He wouldn't do it. He'd be breaking it down. He'd be helping people trying to make money so they can fix their own situation. And when they fix their own situation, then they can go ahead and then help other people to get through their situation.
Right.
And how do I know this? Because I was, you know, seriously, I was lucky enough to be a recipient of some real Christians' philosophies. You know what I mean? Like that guy, and I shared that story already, the guy who gave me that hot chocolate milk with my other two girlfriends. And he just outright goes, here, it looks like you guys need this. Was he a multi-millionaire? I doubt it. But did $1 hot chocolate make him broke? No, but it went a long way. Same thing with the dudes that used to wrap the foods in the garbage cans. You know what I mean? And here's the thing. A lot of people will say, oh, that's so demeaning. No, it's not. Not when you're when you're the one eating from the cans, knowing it's not demeaning. Like for me personally, I was like, you know what? I didn't like people because I knew I was smarter than everybody. And I was really angry about everything. So I liked the anonymity of just going through the trash, nobody knowing who I was, and just eating some good food so I can get through the day or night at that point, so I can go ahead and take care of my business the next day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how it should be done.
That's how it should be done.
And
But see, that act of kindness, you say went a long way, right? That act of
it went a long way for me because I didn't need a lot. See, but that's the thing. Like, so Jesus would probably, in theory, if he came, he would have to sit down and work with these fags a whole lot more than non-fags. You know what I mean? I mean, because I don't know what you call them, sodomites, because everybody's a sodomite when, you know, or a fornicator or whatever, because oral sex is...
It's technically sodomy.
See, because, okay, sodomy is too broad. So you have to be very specific and use the word fag, because, you know...
All right, well, let's be respectful here. I mean, just say homosexual or, you know, because I got gay
no, it
friends.
has to be... okay, we could say homosexual. That's a good word. It has to, well, because it can't apply to women. You know what I mean? Because women are different than men. So it has to be like man-on-man anal sex, because it's that you had to be specific, because just calling somebody a homosexual, that includes the women. But, you know, fags are generally, you know, guys who like to have, you know, sex with other men in the butt. And this is how it works. So, well, I guess we call them power bottoms or something. But either way, so my point is this. It takes a lot of work to get somebody not to engage in that. And, you know, and I bet you money, Jesus will probably break it down. Hey, look, the reason why you have those nerves down there is because, you know, if you guys are unaware, there's a different type of human that used to rape each other. And that was there for self-defense, to help the mind escape from this and that, blah, 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 blah. He'd break it down to him. And then he'd try to help him, you know, with you know, trying to get a job or trying to make money. And then, but try to also let go of that hate that they have.
Yeah.
Because it's, I'm telling you now, I know a lot of people think that, you know, fags are like wimpy and effeminate, but they are aggressive. They really are. They're aggressive people. That's why they have 12 times more sex than just straight dudes. I have a lot of sex, but every gay man I know has way more sex than me. Why? Because they're aggressive people. A lot of really good fighters I know are also gay as hell. But they don't act, oh, you know, like all that, you know, like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like doing the city.
Feminine.
They're like men.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
not these metro queer types.
Yeah, oh god, like even those kind of dudes, I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? Have some pride. I thought you guys always went to the gym and worked out. You know what I mean?
Speaking of pride, right? This is just a random segue about constitutional rights here, but also individual freedoms. The way you know we don't have this is because you can have pride parades, right, as an expression of sexual liberation, kind of similarly to the 60s, but then you can't have a bunch of Christians going down the sidewalk on Market Street, right? And like, not that they're cursing at anybody, but talking about Jesus. You just can't. Even if they were not doing what those black Hebrew Israelites do on the side of Market Street, you just can't have that. And speaking of San Francisco, right, let's tie this into, you know, how the progressive policies have actually ruined certain people's lives, because it's a step away from whether it's conservatism or libertarianism. You sent me a video about that guy in San Francisco up in, I think it's like Fort Mason, or I think it might be Pier 39, where he like scares people from the bush.
Oh, the Bushman.
Yeah, like,
the Bushman.
I've seen that guy before. I've seen him before. I promise you, because it's funny because he basically has a fake branch on the sidewalk and he scares people. Like that's what it's San Francisco. People do weird stuff. So you said that progressive policies stole his livelihood, and you can't do that in San Francisco without a permit. Talk about infringement on individual rights.
No, but that's the whole point. See, now, in the streets, when he started this way back in 1980, this guy.
Yeah.
And
for those of you who don't know this, just look up the Bushman from SF. It's just this guy who scares people from behind a few brands. You definitely know what I'm talking about once you look.
And you know what's funny? Everybody's been copying his routine because there was two of them. There was the original dude who's well, they go back. Well, one is dead. So there's two, but one of the guys died and the other guy's still doing it. But yeah, you actually need a permit to do it because, you know, one year he made like 70-some thousand bucks.
Yeah, people just leave tips.
Yeah, so you know,
70 grand scaring people on a sidewalk, tourists and stuff from a bush.
Yeah, so you know what I mean. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I mean, well, no, it's awesome, but then the government goes, "Hey, you know what? I am going to, I need a part of that money." And so, yeah, so they
can't make money even if you want to. Like,
dude, you want to know what's funny? You can't even get a street permit anymore. There's so many people who got permits that there's no place for them to even perform. They stopped street performances altogether, and now they're starting to arrest people.
Yeah, that's
been confiscating the instruments of people who try to perform.
No, that's 100% true. So I want to tell a story here. I used to
go for it.
as a street musician, so I know this life. Back from between the years of 2014 to 2018, up until I moved, guess what we would do? We would busk with my band, and sometimes I'd do it solo with another guy. Literally, the first time I ever busked was right on Sprout Plaza, UC Berkeley. Okay, so you got to listen to this, right?
Yeah.
The minute we start playing on Sprout Plaza on the steps, for those of you who don't know, Sprout Plaza is this open area. I think it's, it's off of Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley. And right on the UC Berkeley campus. And the minute we plugged in, the minute we started, because we play for tips, right? College students just, leave us some money.
Yeah.
A security guard comes up and says, "Oh, you absolutely can't do that here." And I get it because we were technically on university steps. But get this. So you can't do it there, even though it's considered a public area. But he told us, as long as you're over this line right near the sidewalk, then it's cool. But it's literally like 2 feet. Like, it's like, you can't do it here. I'll literally confiscate your items. And I'm like, you can't do that. And he's like, well, all right, fine. Then just go like 5 feet that way, and then you're good. But all we did was we moved 5 feet to the right, past like a stupid line or whatever. But I see why he did it, because we're now closer to the bus stop. So whenever the bus would come by and rowdy kids would come out of it, it's like it'd make a lot of noise. They can't hear us. But that just shows you like how silly it is, right?
Yeah.
BART stations. You can do it inside certain BART stations when there's not a lot of enforcement. Because 16th Street BART, right? A lot of pigeons, a lot of homeless folks. Like, people are just, they just don't care anymore. But in Oakland, where it's a little bit cleaner, for lack of a better word, because it is a little bit cleaner in Oakland, you can't busk on certain sidewalks now. Because we used to busk. We used to make like couple $100 in tips sometimes, just play for a couple hours if there's a group of people like what you do.
Yeah,
you make money.
No,
I see. That's conservative. Like, that's what we did.
totally
We used to busk on the streets. Like, I did that for a while, and I totally forgot until you brought that up. It's like, street musician, that's what we were doing.
No, but I know, no, because even back in the old days, we would do the same thing. We would just set up camp and go perform right there at the on Market Street, where all the cable car people would be at.
Yeah.
Right there on Powell.
Yeah.
You could totally perform there, or go to the wharf, and you could do all kinds of stuff if you really wanted to. But yeah, you can't do that. But I was shocked when they said all that stuff about, hey, guess what? You got to have a permit now for all this stuff. No, but that's what happened.
Just wait. Watch a bunch of smart kids, right, start a lemonade stand and watch them get taxed. I'm serious. You could do that in the suburb.
But think about this. Why would anybody, like, seriously, this is not unique to just San Francisco. This actually happens everywhere across the country now, even in conservative areas, and it doesn't make any sense to me. How is this even possible? How is this possible? You know what I mean? It's like, don't they understand that people should make this type of money? That when you make, because look at, okay, so like the Bushman told a story, and why he's the Bushman. He got Okay, so he was smoking, partying a lot at his house. So the door swole, because of the steam and everything else, the wood expanded from the humidity.
Right.
And so he had to, he was trying to break down his door, and then the wind or something, or a cat, something, moved the leaf, and then he fell because he was so scared. And he's laughing at himself, and he goes, "Man, this is funny. If I got so scared so easily, I imagine if I did this to other people," and that's how he got it.
That's an amazing idea, just to get it from that. That's funny.
No, but check this out. From his misery, he was able to turn that misery into a mechanism to make money.
That's
because and in some kind of way, that's kind of like the thing that is somehow related to like the philosophies of what Jesus is talking about. He could turn people's misery into some kind of way to go ahead and make money. And then not only does the Bushman make money, but he's able to be charitable to other people, but he's also able to make people laugh and have a good time at the same time through. It's a weird thing, but
it works.
Yeah, but that's what's even crazy. You know what I mean?
But see, here's the thing that's really unfortunate, right? Is that this guy's just trying to make some money. And I even heard this thing because I had a unique idea. I'm willing to bet like this is what's sad about the dwindling conservatism as far as people who just want to make some money. You know that if somebody tries to if you ask someone, right, if you can wash their car in a parking lot or whatever, or wipe it down, right, and it's like a police officer sees you, and say the guy, this is like, it's his car, and he's like, yeah, go ahead. If you want to make a couple bucks, just wipe down my car or whatever. Say some kind of street urchin is looking to do that just to make some money, right? I bet you if a cop saw that and he saw him doing that multiple times, he would tax him, or he would stop him from doing it. Same thing with these people who just want to scrub your shoes on the street. I see it all the time, and I would imagine that. Okay. So this is a good play on words actually with how the laws are, right? There's all this like stupid solicitation related laws, but if the other person is okay with it, if the other person is like, go right ahead, wash my car, I'll pay you $5. Take 5 minutes while I go into the gas station and get myself an energy drink. If a cop saw that, or some official or whatever, and he was doing that on a regular basis, I'm willing to bet they would put a stop to it. They would either stop him from doing it or they would tax him. And that's where it's BS, because it's like they'll get you on a couple things where they're like, oh, you're not allowed to solicit. It's like, dude, it's his car. If I want to exchange a favor, wipe down his car just to make a couple of bucks, why not, right? I'm willing to bet you wouldn't be able to do that, which is why some of these like, I knew a guy, I think he told me a random story where he was like a door-to-door salesman type guy, right? But what he would do was he would basically go to rich people's neighborhoods and ask them if he could wash their cars. But he wouldn't do it. He was just the salesman. He'd hire two 15-year-old kids that were like trying to keep him out of trouble, make the money, and he would just he had a nice little business. He'd have like people just washing their cars because they're in affluent neighborhoods. They have their cars parked out in the driveway. It's like, can I wash your car? It's like, yeah, sure. But I'm willing to bet that if he got caught, they would put an end to it. Even though two parties can't consent anymore. And think about it, it's the same in business, right? Because the minute the government gets involved, it's no longer just a transaction between two people. You know what I mean? It doesn't work anymore.
But my thing is like this. How did we allow this to happen? Seriously, but the thing, and I'll tell you, I got the answer. We allow this to happen for the same reason why blacks are now at the bottom of our society. They turned away from the philosophies that got them to be successful.
Right.
I honestly believe this. We have to follow. We don't have to have biblical laws. We have to really, truly know what the heck Jesus was talking about that very few people understand. And for some reason, these guys don't want to be leaders. When in theory, because I don't really know anything about the Bible, but I'm pretty sure the Bible tells them that they got to be the leaders. They're going to be the alpha males or females, because it might be an alpha female because women have an easier time with sex than men. You know what I mean? I mean, men, as you say, are extremely thirsty. Women aren't so much. You know what I mean? But then it's hard to be a leader when you got to take care of the babies. You know,
Yeah.
but it's the truth, and so that's why I think it has to be up to men. But gosh darn it, man! Like, where all these leaders are at? Where are they? Where are they? Who knows where they are? But they need to come out. They're the ones that study the Bible. They're the ones that they know all these things, but it doesn't make any sense. But you know what it is too? I think these guys don't believe in making money.
That's true.
That's the other thing too, because I'm thinking, well, where in the hell do you think charity comes from? It comes from people with money giving it to those in need. Seriously, you can't help a guy in a wheelchair who can't walk and can barely, he eats his drool for dinner. You can't help a guy like that unless there's honest to God charity, and it's not going to be cheap. You got to pay people to do this. It's kind of weird. Like in the old days, you would pay these people less because their jobs are guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like a nurse who was taking care of some kind of retarded person in a wheelchair. They weren't making as much money as the ER nurses in the county hospital because it wasn't so violent. Because like in an ER room, like let's say in LA or San Francisco or, anywhere where there's a whole bunch of, AIDS running around, your life is in danger, because you could do a needle prick or get bit. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people don't realize in the ER, a lot of people on drugs goes into that ER acting all crazy, trying to bite you with their AIDS. Seriously, can you imagine? You're a nurse, a little Filipino, like 4'11", attacked by some crazy ass, male prostitute who just lost his mind.
Yeah.
No, seriously, that happens all the time in the Bay, and they call them psychiatric emergencies, but still emergency nonetheless. And that's what you're up against. So of course they have to make more money, and taking care of retarded people doesn't get a lot of attention. It's not exciting, but it's guaranteed work. So it takes charity to do something like that. Mm-hmm. And somehow, some way, we have forgotten all about that kind of stuff. So, but then on the streets, we see it all the time because we see retards, it's just a reality. A lot of these crack babies come out retarded or mentally ill. And you know what I mean? So they're like byproducts of a lot of negative things. But that said, that's how we measure ourselves as a society and how we take care of those people, not how we take care of the poor. The poor, they are fine. You have nothing to blame or no one to blame. You can't blame on anything other than yourself. Seriously, you can't blame it on Harvard because Harvard's not going to teach you how to make a boatload of money.
Right.
And that's the thing. You have to be able to, in order to make money, you got to see what's out there. You really do. You have to open your eyes and be open to everything. And I think that's one of the philosophies of Jesus is like, look, you got to be open to everybody. Yeah. Bags, overeaters, whatever you want, whatever the sin might be, the lazy.
Yeah. Because
basically, a lot of poor people are just simply lazy. You know what I mean? Like if you ever think about the 7 deadly sins, I don't know them all.
Sloth is probably what you're referring to.
Yeah. So sloth is lazy. That's generally the poor. That's the byproduct. Gluttony, fat people. You know what I mean?
Greed, rich people.
Greed would be like all those guys from Harvard.
Lust.
Yeah, gay dudes. You know what I mean? But that's the truth. Like when you think of people who overdeal with lust, come on, you gotta think gay men.
No, I mean 7 deadly sins. Yeah, it's true. It's 7 deadly sins is interesting because it does inevitably lead to death. So.
Yeah, no, and that's
cardinal sins. So
I mean, I don't know. I don't have any facts, but just in my gut tells me Jesus would be open to all of those people, hanging out with all of them people, and trying to get them to be better, so that way they can take care of those who are at the true bottom.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how our society should work. But
He healed the undesirables, the lepers, the people who couldn't work in society because no one wanted to be around them, people who had leprosy, as well as that kid who couldn't walk, completely paralyzed, So you're right. It's about helping those people who can't help themselves. And, that I think is an important thing that our listeners need to grapple on. And it's the foundation of libertarianism. But I think where we miss the mark is we think of ourselves and we don't think of others, right? And that's what it comes down to. It really has to do with that. I really think that the infrastructure of our civilization, if it were built on that, right, even from a political means, not just morality, because people think Christianity is a religion where you got to believe on Christ. But look at his teachings. Look at his teachings too. It's the best way to live. It's the best way to live. It's not perfectly in line with our Constitution 100%, but the Constitution's based off of it. It's the best way to live as people. With our flaws and all, it is the best way to govern or lack of govern or civilly moderate each other, as well as making sure we're taking care of the people who can't take care of themselves. And I really think that that's what our listeners can really take from this segment here.